Hello.
Good morning.
Morning. I'm going to. Do you have to share your screen for anything?
I do. I
Okay.
do. I've got to pull in my PowerPoint or
Okay.
my PDF.
I just made you the host,
Okay.
so you should be able to share now.
Okay, great. And go into the chat box and see if you see my post that I gave the notes to this class.
I don't see anything in the chat box.
You don't. Okay, I put that in and I'm seeing it, but maybe it's because I did it before you got on. So let's try again. Okay, do you see anybody in the?
Yeah, now I see it.
Okay, all right. I bet you it was just because I did it before.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
Okay, did you have a nice weekend?
I did. Did you?
Oh, just packing up Al's stuff. He sold his house to Melissa.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Nice.
nothing like packing up. He's been in his house 39 years. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh, what made him want to move?
Well, me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's great. Nice. Is he staying in like the same area or a different city now?
No.
With
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
So my house is getting crowded,
Yeah.
but that's okay. That's all right. Oh, look, we've got Christina and Wendy
Morning.
Good morning. Where's y'all's pictures? Make
I
yourself.
am in bold on
Oh.
Zoom on my laptop, and I'm on with you on my iPad.
Oh, no.
No,
Well,
it's okay.
Well, you know what? We're going to be recording this.
Okay.
And so I don't want you to lose your time with bold if that's,
No, believe me, this is much more needed and so important, and I've been looking forward to it.
Okay. All right. Hi, Wendy.
Good morning. Let's see. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Good
You're
morning.
not.
Michelle.
Good
How are
morning.
you?
I'm good. Wendy,
Happy rainy Monday, right?
I know. That's okay. Boy, the last
Okay.
night, yesterday was stunningly beautiful.
Amazing. I went to an amazing open house with Heather Abernathy yesterday. It was a great
you?
experience.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Did they have good traffic?
Yeah, she had about 12 people in the first hour, about 8 or 9 the next hour.
Oh, that's very good.
It doesn't sound like much, but it was a house full.
Well, and you don't want lots and lots of people just because of health concerns.
Right. And if she had been there all by herself, like if it were me all by myself, that would be a lot of people to keep track of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And of course, the home was stunning.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
But
Well,
it did have like a little hiccup. So it was really neat to see how Heather overcame that and
okay.
how the owners are upfront with it and willing to adjust or work with buyers.
Good.
So it
Good.
was a really good experience.
Good. Good morning, Megan and Mary.
Good morning.
How are you?
Actually always does this.
Hey
like,
there.
I love
I'm
her to
I'm
death,
driving,
if
so I have you
respond,
on mute
I
and everything.
respond
So
to her like every
Oh, you know
day.
what? I'm not sure, Mary. Are you going to be stationary?
I'm gonna be. But I'm gonna listen the whole time.
Okay, because I'm not sure how I mean, we're going to record this.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I want to listen to it while you're
okay.
yapping.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, then I'll not a problem. But for everybody that's on here, we're going to record this so that we can you can watch it again if you want to. And for those that didn't have an opportunity to see it for whatever reason, bold or appointment. Somebody's got things going in the background. Can I get everybody to mute for a moment? Okay, that's better. All right. First of all, good morning. Like I said, I'm gonna record this. So let me hit the record button. I'm really bad about, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, it's already recording.
I just saw that it said stop recording. Okay. Secondly, thank you for attending.
Because I was like, well, I need to talk to you.
Somebody's got something going. I'm gonna have to ask everybody to mute if.
I believe it's Mary, Michelle.
Okay, let's see. Okay, all right. And I want you all to be asking questions. So just remember to unmute yourself when you're asking questions. Good morning, Brenda. Good morning, George. We got Abby, Allison, John Brown. Gosh, okay, we've got a good group. Okay, let's get started because I want to leave time for questions. And really, this is not that terribly difficult. It's if it's new to you, it just takes a moment. Okay. First of all, in the chat box, I have put a PDF for what we're going over. So if you want to save that PDF so that you can print it later, that would be great. That way you know exactly the order that we were going in. And I'm going to go ahead and share the screen with you so that I can pull in my the PDF that I'm going to work off of. Let's see. Bear with me. Okay. Can everyone see net to seller? And oh, I guess we can unmute as we talk, as long as we don't have anything in the background. If you've got things going on in the background, if you'll stay muted, that would be great. Okay, can you see this net to seller? Well, I think everybody's muted, so.
Yes, yeah, I
Okay,
see.
yeah. Okay, all right, just one, good, okay. What we're gonna do is net to seller is going to obviously be something you're working with when you are getting ready to sell a house. And the things that I tell people when I'm doing net to seller is you should be doing net to seller probably at least twice. And when I say at least, there are reasons why you would do it more, but certainly not less than twice. When you meet with someone and you're doing a listing appointment, I would strongly recommend that you are going to tell them that you will do a net to seller. What is a net to seller? Tell the owner.
How much they gonna make?
How much are they going to make? And obviously, if you're doing it before you've got a contract, and we'll go through this, you are estimating certain costs and you're doing it based on good guesses, but you're going to say just this is information that I want to share with you, and we'll adjust it as time comes. Then when you are getting multiple offers, see, I'm going to throw it out there. You all are going to get a listing with multiple offers right now. And so this is when you do this preliminary one, this is a good way, kind of a barometer on what contracts may work to your seller's benefit and some that may come below what you've estimated. So that initial estimate will go through, and I'll tell you how you determine what you're going to put in each blank. So what would you need? And I'm going to ask you all to tell me this. What do you need to do a net to seller? What do you think you'd need?
What they owe in the house,
Okay, and where do you get that from, George?
from hopefully the seller knows what they owe in the house, if not from their mortgage statement.
Yeah, there you go. Bingo. Do not ask the seller what they owe on the house. Guess what? They usually do not know what they owe, or they don't understand what it is, because we're going to get a mortgage statement. What's another thing that would be helpful to know on completing a net to seller?
Tax document.
Property taxes.
Okay, you all are so smart. You're gonna make an A+ on this. Those are the two things that you're going to ask for. And we're also going to ask, and I'm kind of jumping down on here, is there a second mortgage? A lot of people do not understand that equity lines are truly a second mortgage. So you want to ask them the question, are there any other liens on the property? Because there could be a second mortgage, which could be called a HELOC. It could be called a second mortgage. I mean, there are different names for different things. But the reason why I'm asking you to ask them, are there any other liens on the property, is because guess what else can show up? Past HOA. Now, they may not know that at that point. So you're going to ask, do you have any HOA liens? Hopefully they would tell you. Sometimes there are workman's liens. There's all different types of things that can come up. And I would just, you don't want to ask them these questions and them go, heavens no. But you do want to say, do you think there's any other liens that could appear on your property that I need to be aware of? Isn't that a nice way to say it? Yeah. So anyway, for sure, unless they own it free and clear, then we know we need a mortgage statement and we know we need tax information. And the tax information you can get from the counties because you need to know when the taxes are due. For instance, right now, anybody closing in Cobb County, the 2021 tax bill is due when? When does it come out?
April?
No,
October.
that's when it's due by. It comes out in August. So if you're working in a county, you need to know these things. Don't assume that your sellers are going to know them. They're assuming that you know these things. So each county is different. Cherokee County's tax bills are due in December. So let's go back to the Cobb County. If they're due they come out in August and they're due by October, what year would that be for? I know I said it kind of a weird way. It's
It
It was before 2020.
it's good. No, it's going to be for 2021. It's the tax bill comes out in arrears. It comes out after the fact. So for right now, anything for Cobb County, when it comes out in August, it's going to be for the entire year at that point. But the first 8 months, they haven't paid any taxes in. So if you're closing a property now, I don't care if they have an escrow or not, and we'll get more into this. They're going to owe that and then they get refunded back. So two things: mortgage statement and know when the taxes are. Okay? Any questions so far?
Yes, Michelle, quick question. If people ask for mortgage payment relief and they had a break for a couple months, would this balance occur on the mortgage statement, or they have to ask for postponed payment?
Excellent question. And I'm going to defer the answer to that in just a minute. Okay?
Give you money or you just apply it towards.
Somebody's talking.
Costco now.
Somebody's talking about Costco. They need to mute themselves.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's go to the next step. And Lilia, I'm going to answer your question because that's a very important question to ask. On different type of financings, do you think that it matters when you're talking about a payoff? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. And why do you
Yes.
think the answer is yes?
Got to be paid off at closing.
Well, here's the reason. On a conventional loan, both conventional FHA and VA are paid in arrears, meaning after the fact. So on March 1st, today, if you made a mortgage payment today, that was for what months of interest?
February.
February, because it's in arrears after the fact. So the thing about conventional is the payoff is done on a daily basis. So if they close on the 15th of a month, then they're going to look at when the last payment was made. So if they made a payment on March 1st today, they paid for February's interest. But if they are closing on the 15th of the month, they're going to have 15 days of accrued interest that has not been paid, and then however many days it takes to get that payoff. So it's always, when I say current, don't confuse it with the fact that it's in arrears, but it's running based on number of days. Here's the big difference, and here's where I want you to ask people. An FHA and a VA, this is not a penalty, but if it's not received, if the payoff is not received on the 1st, they have to pay 30 days, no matter what. Now, that's assuming that they're current. So if they close tomorrow, March 2nd, and they send the payoff for the FHA or VA, they're going to collect 30 days of interest. There is no proration during the month that you pay it off. Does that make sense? Or is that something new?
Please repeat that again. That's very important. I had a client who was very upset about this when we closed on the 4th of the month once.
Okay, all right, thank you. I will repeat that. On FHA and VA, they are going to, your payoff is not going to be reflective on the day of the month that you closed, unless you are able to close on the 1st and send them the payoff on the 1st, which is virtually impossible. But if the lender does not get the payoff by the 1st of a month, they charge 30 days of interest. So when you're negotiating, if you've got multiple contracts and you know your seller has an FHA and VA, the closing date can matter as far as their net. And if not, you're going to need to adjust your net to seller. So just remember, FHA and VA has that 30-day window. Any questions on that?
Yes, if owner make a payment on the first day of the month of closing, but closing will take place on 5th day or 15th, whatever other day,
Right.
will it be prorated?
No, not on FHA or VA, no. Because remember, on mortgages, it's after the fact or arrears. So when they made a payment on the 1st, that was for February's interest, not March.
Gotcha.
Okay, good question.
Is
Thank
it
you.
possible to add a special stipulation that the buyer will pay a prorated amount on the interest, or it doesn't matter because they're not getting any benefit of paying the seller's interest on an FHA loan, right?
Well, I don't know. Why would you say, I'm confused. Ask that question again.
Okay, so say the buyer can't close until the 5th.
Okay,
And the seller wants to close on the 29th.
okay.
Can you add a special stipulation
Oh,
that the buyer will have to pay the difference in the interest the seller's going to have to pay?
No, I don't think I'd get to that point. I think if that's the case, would you not counter on price or maybe paying less closing costs, or there's other ways to do it. You would never ask or I've never seen, I mean, anything I guess is possible, but.
Yeah,
I
that
would-
makes more sense because it doesn't matter at that point whether they close on the 5th or the 15th. You just
Right,
make a
right.
fixed adjustment to the sale price.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm just telling you this because if you don't take it into account for the seller, the net could be wrong. Now, you're never going to get to the penny because you're not on the mortgage side, and we're making certain assumptions here, and you'll see that. But just remember, FHA and VA, their payoff has to be there by the 1st, or there's 30 days. Okay.
Hey, Michelle.
Uh-huh.
So is there an ideal closing date of the month for your seller who has an FHA or VA loan?
I think it depends on the month, because I would, usually attorneys will give 3 days. Yeah, so, I wouldn't like this past month, the 28th fell on Sunday. I'm trying to think, Sunday. The 26th was Friday. Well, you would never be able to get a payoff to that lender by today, by the 1st, or you probably couldn't. So I would say, maybe a Wednesday. You got to count it out and see where those dates fall. And because if you've got a weekend in between there, that's going to delay getting that payoff to that person.
So probably at least 3 business days.
I would. Yeah, that's probably a pretty good assumption, but I'm going to teach you how to do the net to seller so that if things change, you've got what I call grace. And because when I was doing net to sellers, I always over calculated in their behalf so that when they got to the closing table, they were like pleasantly surprised. So we're never going to be to the penny because there's things you don't want to be to the penny on. There's things that come out of control. Okay. So we talked about on here why the type of financing matters. The next question is, and then we're going to get into these deferred. After that, the modification that Lilia was asking, is there a silent second? What do you all think I mean by a silent second? Because we asked them, did they have a HELOC or a second mortgage? What do you think a silent second could be?
That be an
For-
unreported
Some type of lien?
mortgage?
Well, it is a lien, so that's right. How many of you are familiar with Georgia Dream?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, when people do Georgia Dream, because they get down payment assistance. And assistance is the key word. It's not down payment, it's assistance. And so on a Georgia Dream, and there are other loan programs there, they get if they're just meet certain income criterias and buying in certain areas, they'll get $5,000 down payment assistance. If you're a teacher, medical, a health, a public responder, they may get $7,500 that they can use to get into a home. The reason I call it a silent second, or it's called a silent second, is because while they own the home, they don't make a payment on it. And guess what happens to their brains when you ask them, do you have a mortgage? And they say yes. And you say, do you have a second or a HELOC? Do you think that they usually answer on that silent second?
They forgot
No, because
all
they
about
forget
it.
about the 3 to 5 years they have to stay in the home.
Well, and that doesn't matter. That's where you have to be careful. The 3 to 5 years does matter if you're talking about a federal home loan down payment assistance, then it's forgiven. Not on Georgia Dream, it's not necessarily forgiven. So since they're not making payments, they kind of forget about it. And I bring this up is because we had a real challenging event where the agent, asked for that information. She did exactly what I would have told her to do, but the seller forgot that they had gotten a down payment assistance. So it was obviously our fault because we should have done a title search, which we don't do. And it was our fault because we didn't know that she had gotten a down payment assistance. So be sure and ask that question. Now, do you need to ask that question if the house, they bought it 3 years ago and they paid $700,000?
Probably not.
Probably not. That's right. The down payment assistance is certain price points. So, that would be something that, if you're doing a larger home, you probably won't have down payment assistance. Well, you won't have it that I know of, but you could have a second or a HELOC. So these are the kind of the tricky things that you want to ask about. And I'm going to show you loans that I have come across that we asked that question and uncovered things. So,
and the same, excuse me, Michelle.
Yeah.
And the same if owner has a NACA loan. NACA
Yes.
loan placed 25,000 silent mortgage on a property because by NACA rules, people cannot rent property while they own to the NACA loan. So at the time of closing, if people were still owner occupants, this loan just canceled. If they moved out and rented out, it might pop up as a debt, as a real second mortgage.
Okay, okay. Okay, good. Thank you for adding that. All right. Lilia asked, what if the seller's gone through a modification? And do you know what we're talking about when I say modification of a mortgage?
Maybe when they had was in behind on their payments or something.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's absolutely right. It could be because they got, back in 2008 to 2012, people were, the market was tanking, the sales prices dropped so that some people were upside down in homes.
Right.
Some people couldn't make the payments because they lost their job. I mean, and of course that can happen in a good market or a not so good market, but a modification is where they've gone to the lender and said, I want to remain in the home. I'm gotten behind. Can you please adjust the payments and put it on the back end? Or can you, some of the lenders were doing modifications I saw during that time where they didn't have them repay. They did a interest rate adjustment. So there's all kinds of modifications that are out there, but you want to ask the question, have you gone through a modification? And if you ask it, just say, I have several things I need to ask you, where you kind of run it down. It doesn't sound like you're looking at somebody going, maybe you had a modification. No, you're just asking those questions so that you can make sure that you're giving them good, solid advice. And I'm going to show you what, in this case, last year when we had where the people got to pause their mortgage payments last year, and some still doing it this year, what that can look like on a statement. When do you think, I talked about when to prepare a net to seller. Do you remember what I said? When would be at least the 2 reasons you would prepare a net to seller?
At the beginning.
Correct.
And maybe later on after some negotiations.
Yeah. I mean, the beginning lets you, if you're getting multiple contracts, take a, kind of a snapshot of what you're expecting and start to compare it. You're doing these side by side by side. The next net is once you accept an offer, or your seller has accepted an offer, and now you're adjusting, saying based on what you just negotiated, what you agreed to, let's make an adjustment in the net to seller so that you can keep them apprised of that. It's not as critical if they're not depending on that money to buy another home, but they might be, and you might be involved with that. And so you wouldn't want them to get to the next stage, sell their home, and then go, oh my gosh, we're short of funds. Well, that really shouldn't happen because the lender needs to verify money, but that's the second time you would probably do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to read the mortgage statements I've got coming up. We're going to look for the clues, what we need. We're going to look for balance. We're going to look if they have an escrow account, what the principal and the interest is. Those are 2 different things. We say it like principal and interest, like it's one word, but it's not. A portion of the payment goes to principal reduction and a portion of the payment goes to interest. And I can assure you that when you see a new loan, the majority of the payment is going to what?
Interest.
The principal. I mean, the interest. The interest. Yeah.
Interest. Yeah. It's heavily weighted. About 3% of the payment your first year goes to principal reduction. That's about it. So if you don't pay extra, you're going to run it all 30 years if you've got a 30-year loan. Then we're going to look for taxes. We're going to look at for insurance, and we're going to look at the next payment date. So if you remember these things, if you kind of have a little checklist, it makes it pretty easy to go down. And then we'll talk about the net to seller form, what the costs of sale are, and how you estimate it, and why it's best to leave credits alone. So are you ready to jump into it? Okay, here we go, whether you want to or not. Okay, this first statement was from Regions Mortgage, and I've redacted who it belonged to and the loan number so that for their privacy. But look where I've circled up here at the top. Look at their monthly amount. Woof, I know, but look here. Can you see where my little guiding is? They owe $229,856.76. Doesn't that look like a whole lot of payment for that kind of loan amount?
It does.
Yes,
You know why?
they're paying 2 mortgages.
No,
Tax, oh, they get taxes.
nope.
No, you can see that they have past due payments.
Exactly. Perfect. So
Oh,
there's going to be things that when you see it, it's going to start to trigger the questions if it doesn't appear on here. So that $4,711.29 is because they have past due payments of $3,140.86. First of all, what I would ask is, did you get, during the COVID, did you get a pause in your mortgage payment? Because if they didn't get a pause, if they're just past due, you better be selling it pretty quick before it goes to the courthouse steps. Would you not say?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you get behind 3 months, that's usually the rule, 3 months, then they'll start getting notices that it's going to the courthouse steps. So ask that question, why do we have that amount, and what on this past due, is this something that has been approved and that you're okay? Well, this particular client told me that they weren't having to pay interest or anything on it. They just got a free pause button. Well, do you think that's correct?
No.
No, there's no free pause button. It just gave them the ability to take it. And it's interesting because this person didn't need a free pause button. They both were on Social Security. So did they lose their jobs?
No.
No. So I promptly told them that they needed to reach out and see about making up these payments or resuming payments so we didn't get farther and farther behind, because will that affect your net?
Of course.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's go down. The principal, $354.20. Interest. See, remember when I said the interest makes up more of the payment than the principal? $859.32. And escrow on a monthly basis was $366.91. Well, here's the kicker, and I don't want to get too involved. We want to keep this simple, but in those past due payments should have been taxes and insurance. So the lender is having to pay those when they come due, whether they have enough money to pay them. So it can make your payoff more complicated. But let's just keep it simple, because I don't want your heads to spin and eyeballs popping out. So in this case, we were past due $4,711.29. The mortgage statement date was May 18th, 20. And when I met with them, it was June. So did I assume that we've missed another payment at that point?
Yes.
Yeah, we had. So, and then to get it on the market, to get it ready and get it to sell, there was an assumption made that it would probably be July. So we could have gone a number of months. So you start having to kind of estimate, what it's going to take. Now, I had the conversation with these people and said, if you didn't need this, you need to resume payments because it's only going to get worse. And they weren't sure if they wanted to do that or not. So I'm going to show you something that reflects it. So we've got a balance of 229, 856, 76, but we've got to add 4,711.29 on it. Plus, there may be some escrows that were paid. So it gets a little more complicated. So if you all have something where they've paused their payments, that's a nice way of just saying, for whatever reason, they didn't make their payments, come to me and I'll help you walk through that, okay? Because I understand it because I have been on the mortgage side. So anyway, we're gonna I put a little asterisk here, delinquent notices, unpaid balance, unpaid balance. Now they picked up again. Well, they had been paying up until March. And then in April, they decided that they were going to take a little break. And that's where we started seeing that. So some of the mortgage statements will have information on there. Just learn to look for these things. Any questions on this statement so far?
No.
Okay, so we know that they're past due. We know that they have escrows because some loans do not have escrows. They're not picking up for taxes and insurance. So I'm going to go down and prepare a net to seller. And so this was prepared in July. That was when I actually met with them. They had already been not making payments for a while. So we presumed, we took a look at what the market was doing and we presumed a sales price of $375. So that's going to be what you expect that property will sell for. Okay. And then I took off from that statement the 229, 858, 76 as the balance, but it's not the payoff because people mistake it. They'll say my balance is, and they think that's their payoff. It isn't, because remember, we're in arrears. But what I did is I said, if we close on a certain date, we're probably going to need $9,421.29 to catch us up. Now, you're going, wow, how'd you come up with that number? That's why I say, if you've got this, just get with me and I'll walk you through that, because this gets a little more complicated. And I wanted to show you the hardest one first and then get easier, okay? So what that meant is in this column, I added this figure, these two figures up, and I came up with 239, 280.05. Does everyone follow me so far? Now, this number I calculated. It wasn't on the statement, but I calculated out when we would actually be able to close this loan potentially. Does that make sense? Anybody lost, or is everybody lost? It's okay to say it. Okay. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on and I'm going to say, I looked at what homes in that area when they sold, if there was any seller contributions. You can see that in FMLS. So I saw the typical seller contribution being an average of 3,000. So when I sit down and talk with a seller, I don't say, this is what you're going to pay. I say, this is what's typical of the area. And because it's in an entry level home price, it could be that they're going to need help with that. So there's nothing wrong with putting an average in there, because what if you get a bunch of contracts that ask for no closing costs? Does that make this net to seller better than what you had estimated?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. It does. So again, I'm trying to prepare them for what I've seen in the past, but what could be affecting their bottom line. Unpaid property taxes. This particular individual had a seller exemption, a senior seller exemption, meaning that their property taxes were very low. So I just estimated, this is the easiest way to do it, is take the tax bill from the previous year, because it wasn't out yet when I did this, and divide it by 12, because there's how many months in a year? 12. And then multiplied it times the number of months until we thought they were going to close. Well, you go, well, don't you want to prorate it on a daily basis? No, because I don't want you to try to get so exact. If you're closing on the 15th and you've calculated it through the 30th, does it give them a better bottom line? It does. So anyway, just take the year, divide it by 12, and calculate what they're going to owe. So in this case, the tax bill, whatever it was, I divided by 12 and I multiplied it through August. And that's how I came up with the 584. Most properties, you want to ask about special assessments. Are they up to date on HOA? Is there any cost that they're going to need to get a payoff on a HOA letter, anything like that? You could put it in there. Survey is not typical anymore. It used to be, but the survey, I always put 0. Home inspection, repairs, and cleanup. How do you think I came up with this number, this 1,500? How would you come up with a number if you wanted to plug something in?
1% of the sale price?
No, but gosh, that's a good as guess as any. In this case, since the sales price was $375, 1% would have been $3,750. Have you ever
I'm
walked
thinking
in?
about closing costs. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. That's not a problem. Thank you for interacting. The home inspection, when you walk into a property, it is our nature as realtors to look around. Have you ever walked into a property that you go, whoa, this is going to take some cleaning up? In this particular case, I put 1,500 because they needed to do some sprucing up in the yard. They needed to do some, I could see that there was a little bit of deferred maintenance. So I just threw in an arbitrary figure of that, because when you do a due diligence, when you've got the buyer and an inspection is done, don't you then do an amendment to address concerns and ask the seller to do things, correct? So I'm just guessing at this number what they could expect. And as it turned out for this particular home, I had expected 1,500 probably, and it came out to about 1,700. So I was off by about 200. Now, granted, they're paying this a lot of times out of their pocket, not at the closing table, but I still want a seller to have an understanding on what it's going to take to get to closing. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay. The real estate brokerage fee, in this case, I just took what was agreed upon times what we predicted the sales price, and that was $20,625. On FHA and VA, there are certain things the seller must pay. But I put 0 at this point. Sometimes if you're in a price point that you think is going to attract a VA or an FHA buyer, you'll want to check with a lender and ask them typically what are the things that the seller must pay. you know, on FHA, for instance, they can't pay a tax service fee. The buyer can't, and that's the only thing that they can't pay. So if I had gotten an FHA, it probably would have been about $30, $40 in there. But again, just understand what these fees are. And it's not that you need to master it. You just need to have a kind of this is an estimated. This is not actual. Prorated rent to buyer, I always put 0. We don't intend to rent back to the buyer or rent back from the buyer. That would be if the seller was paying it back. And a security deposit transferred, that's only if somebody's buying a property with a tenant in it, that could be an issue. But typically it's 0. So notice line 18, I put other. In this case, I strongly recommended, because the house had a little bit of deferred maintenance, that the seller offer a warranty so that it helped in when you're negotiating the amendment to address concerns. So we just threw that number in, the 580. It could be, I mean, there's all sorts of price ranges. And so when I added all of this up, it came to $26,289. Do you have any questions on how I
Yes.
arrived at figures?
I'm sorry, can you tell me what was your formula for number 14 for the brokerage
Number
fee?
14.
Yes, ma'am.
The formula, well, it's going to be your formula. It's going to be
Okay.
anywhere from, you know, whatever you agree upon, 5%, 6%, 7% if you are just
Okay,
brilliant, you know.
Okay.
So it's going to be what you have agreed upon in the buyer brokerage agreement.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, the exclusive listing agreement.
Okay, so 6% times the price of the home?
Right, if 6% is your business number, if that's your business model and you're working off that, then yes. That's
Okay,
cool.
what's your number, Michelle?
What was this number? I think it was 5.5.
No, I said, what was your business number? Would you have been 7%?
You know, it depended. I think this particular one was 5.5 because they were buying something afterwards.
Oh, okay.
My business number, I only do it for family friends now. I mean, I don't,
Okay.
I don't get out there. But when I was really selling, when that was what I was doing, typically it was 6% because I knew I had a value that I could bring to the table to actually save them money, whether it was in my negotiation skills or my knowledge of mortgage banking. There was a lot of reasons. So that's your decision.
Okay, so 6% times the price of the home.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean that, but commissions are not set. So it depends
Okay.
on what your business is.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Thank-
so when you take 375 and subtract 23,000 or 239,280.05 and subtract 26,289, that meant that the net to seller in this case, if we have estimated, if we stay within these figures, they should net 109,430.95. It's just math. The tough part on net to seller is A, knowing how to read the statement, and B, kind of knowing what your formulas are going to be. Now, have I ever gone into a home in past and saw that it was unbelievably neat as a whistle, didn't have any, I didn't see anything, then I wouldn't use necessarily 1,500. I might use 500, but I always put something in there because I tell the seller, it's not that we're going to spend it, but if we have it in there and you're not going to spend that money, then our net only goes up. So it's a win-win, right? Nobody is mad when they make more money than what you had estimated. And the key word is estimated, okay? Any questions how we got to this number?
Michelle, I have a question.
Yeah.
And maybe I missed it, but if this is for the same sellers that we looked at their mortgage statement, they
Yes,
have an escrow balance. So don't we get to give them a credit for that,
no,
for their taxes and insurance?
thank you for asking that, because that was going to be my next thing. So you are on top of it. We are not giving them credit because the lender is not dispersing that money until after closing. So when they get their payoff and they have a balance in their escrow account that was unused, then they'll get a check back separately from the actual closing. Does that answer your question?
Do you give them a heads up so that you can be the bearer of good news?
Yes, of course I do. You are, you're catching on here. Absolutely. What I tell them is that, and it really depends on what time of year this is happening. Because if you take a listing in Cobb County in August and it doesn't close until October, they might know that they've got an escrow balance in there, but the lender may have paid that tax bill in September. So that's why I never want to fool with that, because you don't know when their homeowners insurance is due, and you don't know, or you're not really certain until you've got that contract when the taxes are due. So any surplus that's left over, bingo, then that money's coming back, but it never appears at closing, ever. Okay. Good question. Thank you. All right. Are you all ready to move on? Because, okay, silence means yes. Here's a mortgage statement that you see where I've circled 149, 740, 893. And when it's due, in this case, it was due 2/1/21. We know how much the payment is. And then I come down and I see a breakdown of principal. Well, it shows zero principal and interest. We're going to go to the next page to see that. But remember, I tell you that I ask people, did you have a silent second? Did you get a down payment assistance? And she goes, oh yes, I got a Georgia Dream. So she was a teacher. So I said, okay, your Georgia Dream, if you used it as a teacher, was $7,500. How did I know that? Because I was in mortgage banking. That's how I knew it. You might not know it, but ask them that question. And if you come to me and say, well, they were a teacher or they're a firefighter or EMS driver, whatever, I can usually guide you as to what to expect. Now, is that going to be cast in stone? No, because they'll do a title search. The attorney will, and they'll find that information. But it is important when you're doing the net to seller. And I knew it was an FHA loan. Now, not all our Georgia Dreams are FHA loans, but the majority of them are, because there's a first mortgage and then a silent second. So what I did is I came back to the second page and I saw the due date. Clearly, this one wasn't due until July 1st, 2021. Now, let me go back and show you the date that this appeared. Applied date, effective date. That's why nothing is owed on this. Do you know what has happened here? This smart young lady got ahead in the payments. People will do that. They'll go ahead and make payments. So in the event that they have something come up, then they're never just running on time. Crazy as it sounds, I do the same thing. I stay 4 months in advance on my mortgage payments. That way, if I, had a catastrophe for 4 months, my family doesn't have to worry about making those payments. So clearly she did. So that's confusing. And that's why I showed it to you, because she didn't have another payment due until July of this year. Do you all follow what I'm doing? You're just reading the statement, and you're going to read things that don't make sense. And if they don't make sense, just ask and we'll walk you through it. So if she had had a payment, the principal and interest was $285.58. The interest was $484.47, and the escrow was $403.04. So now I know I'm looking at total principal and interest of $771.07. I didn't have, obviously, could I have late fees or any late charges when she's, in this case, 6 months in advance? No, I'm not going to have that. So let's go down to the net to seller. So if you've got a situation where you've got the net to seller, the first mortgage payment was $149,748.93. The accrued interest, now, was I padding by adding 30 days of interest? Yes, I was padding because she didn't have a payment due until July. And as it turns out, she's going to close March 10th. So now she's in her mind thinking she's going to get less than she's really going to get. But isn't that the whole idea, is to get somebody finding out they're getting more money? Then you're a hero. But I also added in the $7,500 that I knew was outstanding. And the cool thing about the silent seconds on that, when you've got a silent second, they're the only ones that aren't accruing any interest on it in this particular case. Now there may be other loans out there that you couldn't make that assumption, but if you took all these numbers, the balance was $158.20. In looking in that neighborhood, typical closing costs were $3,500. Taking the sales tax of, or I'm sorry, the property tax of $1,751 divided by 12, just simply the number times 3, and there is your figure you're popping in. Home inspection and repairs. This house was clean, but it was older, so arbitrarily I put in $650. And the brokerage fee, that was 6%. For somebody said, what are you using? That was $13,200. And it would probably be pretty typical that because of the price point, FHA and VA may be predominant contracts in there. So threw in $175. And then in this case, the seller wanted to provide a home warranty, and that was $525. So the total amount came to $18,633.66. In this case, now I will tell you, the net to seller form, the GAR form, is in your DocuSign. For whatever reason, it doesn't add correctly. So you notice I put XXXXXXX, and I did a manual override. And then her net, we were estimating to be $43,346.34. Well, when you show the net to seller, get their reaction to it. I asked this young lady, I said, how do you feel about this number? And she said, magnificent. She just bought the house 3.5 years ago. And she goes, all I wanted to do is not have to pay at closing. So now, do you think she's happy with the $43,346.34?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay, same thing. Number 2, now multiple contracts came in on this property. There were 29 contracts to compare.
Ooh.
That's why I say doing your net to seller is going to help you navigate through some of the things, because all we're talking about is net to seller today, not terms on comparing multiple contracts. So the sales price, remember on this one, we put $220. It came out at $230. So now, are we $10,000 ahead of the game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
no closing
Oh, yeah.
costs.
Oh, yeah. Now we're looking pretty good. And I used the same numbers here of the 158,020. But the contract that she wanted to accept, they asked for 0 closing cost. Remember, I had 3,000 in there.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're $13,000 ahead of where I had projected to be. The property taxes based on closing actually dropped a little bit, but not significant. Home inspection, I circled this because I didn't take that out at that time because we're not there. But guess how much her home inspection and cleanup was?
Maybe half.
Maybe 0.
Wow.
Yeah. So now we're $13,615 to the better. And the brokerage fee stayed the same and the home warranty stayed the same. But this number, the $15,412.75, that 650 is still in there. And I rewrote this because it kind of got blurred, but now her net was 56,567.25 plus 650,000. I mean, $650, not thousand. So it's roughly $57,100 or $200. Do you think that the seller is now getting happier by the moment?
Very happy.
Yeah. And so what all it's doing is a net to seller is going to set expectations, and you will look tremendously professional when you keep adding to their bottom line. Now, again, she was 6 months in advance, so her payoff is going to be less than what I calculated because it's already been paid. So she'll get more than that, but the whole idea, keep it somewhat simple for you because that way you understand it. Does anybody have any questions on what has happened in this scenario?
What's the question?
The question was, does anybody have any questions on what happened in this particular scenario? Because everyone is different.
I have
Michelle,
a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, on this one, you don't have, I think it was document preparation at 175 on the other one and nothing on this one. And I'm concerned, like when you look at a closing statement and you see all these little fees, is that what that 175 is estimated to cover for the seller?
Well, the seller, the fees that, I mean, it could be, the fees are usually to overnight a payoff, but it used to be, now they wire funds.
Yeah.
You know, the cancellation of a deed to secure debt to show that has been paid off, that's usually $50. So if you throw in that 150, 175, but see, here it says doc prep fees, FHA and VA. Well, we didn't take an FHA or VA contract, so I left that blank. But you could come down to number 19 and go miscellaneous fees and throw in 175 and just tell them that they're going to be charged with whatever the attorney charges to pay off their note, to cancel their deed to secure debt, things like that. You know, they're only going to be charged if there really is a charge. Just because it appears on your statement, the attorney is not going to see that and go, oh, well, we can get an extra 175. That's not the way it works. And really on your seller, they're not the ones getting the lots of miscellaneous fees. It could be HOA letter. I mean, it could be, but again, that could be special assessments is really if they're having to pay for something with the HOA and special assessment. So you could add another in, but remember, we've padded enough in here that even if there was a $50 charge to cancel the deed to secure debt from the attorney, did it make any difference in the big picture here? No, no. So anyway, the last thing I wanted to show you, because we're going a little bit over, so I hope you're okay with that. But I wanted to show you another mortgage statement. This one, it shows outstanding principal of being 141,420.09. The payment due date is 3/1/2021. Amount due, 0. Why do you think that is?
Because it's been deferred.
Nope. Nope.
They've paid ahead again?
Uh-huh,
That's what
exactly.
I was
It's
gonna
paid
say.
ahead. Good. Who said that? Fess up. Who said it? Because that
I
was smart.
think I did.
Okay. Whose I did? I can't tell.
I'm sorry, Wendy.
Wendy. Okay, good job. Okay, now look at here. Escrows for taxes and insurance. It says 0. Why do you think it shows 0?
She doesn't escrow her taxes and insurance?
That is correct.
Notice I said she.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Okay, yeah, you're saying maybe not, maybe a he, but
That's
no,
right.
there's no taxes and insurance escrowed. So you take a look at that. So obviously you're not going to have the statement that your lender could be returning money because there's no money to return. Here, the principal is $609.99. The interest is $340.28. Doesn't that look weird? The principal's more than the interest. Why do you think that's the case?
Several years into the loan.
It could be that. It could. But look at the maturity date, 12/1/2050. Doesn't that say if it's a 30-year loan, it was probably just taken out in 2020? What else do you think it could be?
15-year mortgage?
It could, but the payment probably wouldn't be that, but that's another good guess. What's another thing it could be? Are you ready for the answer? In this case, this individual is paying additional to principal to reduce that payment or to that loan balance quicker than a 30-year. So again, these are things as you get familiar with them, questions will come up, may come up and where you go, well, this doesn't make sense. Well, it does, but you have to know why it made sense. So I wanted to throw that in because that one would have been confusing, because if there was no amount due and you're trying to figure up a payoff, you're going to take 1 month principal and interest and add it to the payoff, correct?
Yes.
Well, in this case, that you would have thought to add.
Would have doubled it by mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Well, almost doubled it. 950.27, and it wouldn't have been that much. In this case, I know the number, it would have been $598. So all of these things, could you have gone wrong by using this number? No, I mean, they'd get more money back. It doesn't matter. But again, these are all things as you read through, look at for all of you that have mortgages, look at your statements and start with that and start understanding them. Now, every lender does it differently. Okay. Oh, I didn't show you the bottom. Regular payment, $598.27. Principal only payment, an additional $352 was made to reduce that balance. That goes directly to the balance, whereas a normal payment, part of it goes to interest and part of it goes to principal. You can make a principal only payment and take it down to whatever term you want. All right. Any ahas? Surely somebody learned something today.
Of course.
Yeah, that was good information.
Good, good. Was there anything that I didn't explain well enough where you still have a question, and please ask them?
So Michelle, you saying that on teachers and firefighters, down payment assistance, their amount never has a maturity date. So no matter what, how long people are on a mortgage?
Well, here, let me rephrase that, and that might be what you're saying. There is, let's just say that somebody gets a Georgia Dream loan and they stay in the house 10 years. Their principal balance on their first mortgage is going down. The second mortgage, the silent second, is remaining the same because there was no payments made. It was at zero interest, and so they still owe the same amount of money. Let me just say this, there are some second mortgages that are silent, that for every year a borrower remains in the home, a portion is forgiven. For instance, there is one called the Federal Home Loan Down Payment Assistance. And when I was in mortgage banking, I loved using this. And we won't go into the details, but for every year that that borrower was in the home, up to 5 years, after 5 years, it was totally forgiven. But that is not the normal. So you want to ask the question, okay?
Michelle, for those of us who don't have backgrounds in mortgage banking, would you suggest that we reach out to the lender for some of these questions?
You could, absolutely. Yes, you can. Because I want you to at least understand. Now, again, these are estimates that you're preparing, and you need to emphasize to your seller that these are estimates. But if you're not certain how mortgages really work, and if you've never been in mortgage banking, you probably wouldn't, you have just a minimal, knowledge, just find out what pertains to the net to seller. Master that, and you'll feel, you'll look like a hero, because probably for those that are agents, I would say probably 80% aren't preparing net to sellers. That is just what I've observed. Now, for any of you that are on this call that are seasoned and you're preparing them, great. If you weren't, now they're not hard. They just shouldn't take more than 10, 15 minutes at most, if you know what to look for.
You present the net to seller when you first sit down with the customer client before they sign the agreement, or how do you present it? When do you present
No,
it?
I never did. I always said, in my presentation, one of the things that I will do for you is do a net to seller, so that you have an idea of an estimate of what you are going to net out of this property. Because sometimes that helps, because they have a certain price in their mind, and they may not have calculated the net in their mind, and sometimes the price, it can help in negotiations, because now they know the price can be slightly less if it were in that kind of market, and they're still okay. So I do it because I don't have their mortgage statement at that point. I tell them this is what I need to go forward.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I tell them I'm going to do another one once a contract or contracts are received, to see how we're faring. The good news is if you understand it, unless there's a substantial change in price in the market, a lot of times you look like the hero. They're getting more than what has been estimated. Now, not all markets. We may get back to a market where it's a buyer's market, and then that could change. What else?
So as far as the closing costs, do you suggest keeping that percentage in there, maybe 1%? Even though right now in this market, no one is paying closing costs pretty much?
Well, here's what I would suggest is the area that you are selling, let's just pretend that it's, I don't know, I mean, just chimney lakes. I'm just making up something. And you go through and you look at what's sold in the last 90 days or 180 days, and you
Right.
saw that there was typically, when you averaged them all, $2,000, I'd still throw it in.
Right. So at least it'll look good in case they
Yeah,
don't, in
and
case
you
they
know
get
what?
one and don't have to pay it.
Exactly. And how many times have you all seen, those of you that are seasoned agents, where in lieu of, uh-oh, hang on, somebody mute. Oh, thank you. How many times have you seen in lieu of repairs, people, you know, they may come back and say $2,000 in closing costs?
A lot.
Yeah. So if you leave that figure, if you put that figure in, it helps buffer some things.
Gotcha.
Okay. What else? Was it good? Was it as hard as you thought?
It was very good. Hey, Michelle, can you?
It was so good.
Good. Thank you.
It was so good. It was just like, before looking at that form, it looked so overwhelming with all those numbers. It was overwhelming. But when you broke it down like that, it makes so much more sense. And
well, thank you. I put in the chat box the same thing I showed you on the screen, so you can download the PDF and then use it to kind of figure out how I calculated that. And please, if there's a question or you're just not certain, just come to me, because I can promise you, I had one that's on the call the other day, and we did her net to seller in no time flat. Correct? Correct. You don't have to answer.
yes, correct. And yes. Yes, correct. And it made so much sense. I felt like such a professional when I called and explained it.
Good.
They really appreciated it too, because they're buying another home and they really need the money for their closing and everything.
Perfect reason. What else?
Yes.
Anybody
I got one
else?
more comment. Somebody said something about how very few sellers are paying closing costs right now.
No.
That stat is in the statistics from Chuck Carr, and in fourth quarter, well, actually in 2020, 71% of seller paid closing costs were included in 71% of sales. So that's, make sure you're accurate in that.
Yeah, well, remember, this is a number. Uh-oh, somebody mute.
She knows differently.
Somebody
From
mute.
both of us. She spent the night.
Let me mute everybody. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Mary.
You know, this is a number that's fluid. I mean, it's not, you know, it is not given until everything is negotiated. So yeah, you're seeing a lot of people that are negotiating no closing costs right now, but surprisingly enough, there's a lot that are out there, and most of it usually appears on the amendment to address concerns, if there were none.
Yeah.
So, and that part you won't know. You can, because you won't be privy to where they started. So what other questions?
Michelle, this is Allison. I don't see a link in the chats. Is that where you put it, the Zoom
I
link?
did. Let me go
Check.
back in, and I'm going to stop share so I can go back to you all. Let me see, in the chat box, hang on. It should be at the very top, but let's do it again. To everyone, it might have just been because I did it before we got started. So let's see if this does the trick. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay.
There you go.
Got it? Thank you for bringing that up. I would have been Obviously, I don't know how to do Zoom, but that's not my expertise. So thank you.
Still,
It will be one of these days. It'll be everybody's.
still have it.
Okay. Anything else? I thank you for your time. And, you know, there's 15, well, I'm one of the 15. So there's 14 of us that are on this call that are going to do an amazing job for their sellers. So I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, just call me, please. I'll be glad, because I can promise you. And if you want me to look over your net to seller the first time you do it, because you're not certain, just send it to me. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You
Thanks,
are very
Michelle.
welcome. You're very
Good day.
welcome. Have a good day. Thanks, guys and
You
girls.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.